Hi, and welcome to Agile Loves Uncertainty. What makes Agile, Agile? Now, in order to understand the difference between Agile, traditional, and lean, we like to use what we call the triple cost constraint. Project managers know this extremely well, and it's a great framework for understanding the difference between the methods. Now, each one of these methods, Agile, traditional, and lean, they adjust one of these three constraints. For Agile, what we do is we fix budget and schedule, and we have a team then for a certain amount of time. And the question is, how much can we get done within that time? When it comes to traditional, we fix scope and schedule. We know what we want and when we want it. And the question is, how much is it going to cost? And when it comes to lean, we have a scope and we have a budget, so a problem to solve and money to solve it with. And the question is, how quickly can we solve it? Or what time is it going to take? With Agile, you have to trust the team that you're working with. The owner picks a team based upon a relationship. Why? Because you don't want someone changing scope on you if there's no trust. When it comes to traditional, it's all about efficiency. Look, I know I'm going to get when I'm going to get it, so give me the best price. And when it comes to lean, you only have a certain amount of money in which to solve a problem, so you want an expert on that problem. And you want that expert because they're going to be faster at solving it. So when it comes to what it is that we're going for with these three techniques, with Agile, we're going for speed. Why? Because we need a product delivered in this amount in time. The best way to do that is to vary scope, because the reality is the fastest way to get to the finish line in a project is to deliver as little scope as possible. And we'll get to just why that is so powerful when it comes to delivering more value. In terms of traditional, it's all about predictability, knowing when you're going to get something and being able to get what you want. So that's why you're using a traditional approach, is to predict what you're going to get. And then finally, in lean, what we're looking for is solving a problem. We have a problem that we need to solve. We need an expert to solve it. The question is, how long is it going to take? So in terms of the actual industry characteristics, we are going to go through three different levels so that you understand them in a little bit more detail. The first is that when it comes to project size, the traditional projects tend to be large. Agile projects tend to be medium in size, and lean projects tend to be very small. This is the typical industry characteristics that we see. When it comes to traditional, what we're normally seeing in terms of the type of industries involved are construction, military, or government and policy or relocation projects. With Agile, it's all about information technology, product development, management consulting, and operations. These types of industries embrace Agile because they're delivering on a regular basis. And for lean, we typically see things like sales. We have a sales where we can only respond on a sales cycle, or customer support where we're solving someone's problems, or legal and R&D support where we're trying to solve some kind of issue that the customer has. In terms of the size of customers, well, in traditional, we normally see that we have really large groups of stakeholders and customers, normally over 250 participants. In terms of Agile, it's normally up to about 250. Now, 250 is what's called Dunbar's number, and that is the size of any social group that a mammal is able to handle in terms of their mind. And for humans, that's about 250, where you have the largest amount of social connections that we can manage. And then when it comes to lean, it's up to about 10. And 10 is normally our limit in terms of the span of control. They're usually small tactical teams. So lean is limited by the span of control, how much we can handle in terms of our working memory, which is about 10, maybe half that in reality. Agile is about 250 in terms of the participants, both developing and stakeholders. And then when we get to larger than 250, we go with traditional. We also see that communication with the customer tends to be very different across these different techniques. In lean, it's always about a ticketing system or being on call. The customer picks up the phone and goes, "Hey, I've got a problem. I need you to fix it." And the response is, "Yes, sir. We will prioritize it accordingly." When it comes to Agile, the customer is literally on the team because they have to help steer the scope that is being developed. And when it comes to traditional, we usually end up with representatives, or we have really large facilitated meetings, like we have town halls and that kind of thing, because there's just so many people involved. And then in terms of the payment methods, when it comes to lean, you usually get paid in a cost plus or subscription manner. With Agile, we typically see time and materials or paid purchases. And then when it comes to traditional, we typically see quotes because it's a very large, expensive project that is very unique. So in terms of the differences in terms of engineering between these different techniques, traditional is all about efficiency. And as a result, what we see is we have some application and then it has features. And these features could be like in a car where you have windows, you've got air conditioning, you've got the ability to turn on, an infotainment system, and you've also, of course, have the ability to propel yourself. And all of these different features are tapping into services. And in order to be efficient, you're reusing services again and again and again. This results in a high amount of reuse in what we call a tightly coupled design. Small changes have really big costs, lower costs if no changes whatsoever. When it comes to lean, it's an evolutionary process. Why? Because as questions come in or as needs come in, the product evolves over time. You end up with an application with features, but then those features build services in an evolutionary manner. The result is an evolving design where you use just enough to solve each problem, and you try to reuse wherever possible, but oftentimes it ends up in a very complex final product. And then there's Agile. Agile is all about decoupling the architecture. And the reason why we do that is because of the fact that we don't want to have a lot of cost when we change things. We know we're going to change in the future. We know we're going to learn. So that means that we have low or no reuse of components underneath the hood whatsoever. We can release individual features right away because they're completely self-contained. And that functional redundancy does mean that we have slightly higher costs in total if you're trying to deliver the whole product. But we can get the first feature out a lot faster. Okay, now that we understand the difference between traditional, lean, and agile architectures, one with a high amount of reuse, one that has an evolutionary design, and one that is completely decoupled or loosely coupled so that it can change easily,